Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Tony, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my senior project, the PASS Companion Program. Okay, so here's kind of how I want to go about talking about this. I want to start with the problem itself, because as IEs here at Cal Poly, we all learn that you got to start by identifying your problem before you get to your methodology and start working on it. So, of course, I'm going to start talking about my methodology, how I'm going to work on and solve this problem, and finally the conclusion, what I want this project to be and kind of where I want it to go and what I want it to become. So the problem. So the first thing I want to say is that PASS is a very good program. All the students I've talked to who use it think it's very useful and enjoy it. But as IEs, everyone who's an IE knows that you can always have more improvement. So I'd like to improve the program by working on some of its limitations. So the limitations I chose to work on are some of the big ones for me personally and from talking amongst my peers, and they kind of boil down to these three. Firstly, you can never sign up for more classes than you're going to take with PASS. And I know that sounds a bit confusing, but I'm going to get to a practical example in the next slide that I think will give more light on this and the other limitations. So, the second limitation, you can't optimize your choices based on preferences for specific classes. And the third one, you can't group classes together and then select a preference for, say, one of them to be chosen out of the three. So here's kind of what that looks like. So let's say you have this flowchart. This is the 07-09 flowchart for a senior who's starting their fall quarter. So it's a little hard to say exactly what classes you want to take, and there's a lot to choose from. And some of them can be eliminated because of prereq options, and if you did that, it would look like this. The student would have these 9 classes to choose from, and if the student wanted to pick 4 of these 9 classes, they would follow in math, which is a combination of 9 choose 4. And that means that there's a total of 126 potentially different schedules that they'd have to go to. Now, I don't know any student who'd want to go through 126 schedules on PASS to come up with the best option. So, what I'd like to do is look at a way to narrow that down. So, because this is where the limitations come in. So if you wanted to narrow it down, you could, for instance, say, do a combination program option where you could put these in and say choose 4, and PASS would come up with all 126 schedules for you to look through. But it doesn't do that. The second thing you could do is preferences for single classes to help narrow that down. So you could, for instance, put 405 and say, I really need 405 because that's a prereq for 2 classes in the next quarter. So I really want that to be taken. So PASS would then, potentially at least, it would then assign a greater value to 405 so that if anything conflicted with it, it would take it out of the equation, out of the schedule. But PASS doesn't work that way. Again, the way PASS kind of works is if you really want 405, put 405 in and I'll make it work. And if it doesn't work, then there's nothing I can do about it. The final limitation is a bit like 2, except it goes something more like this. So let's say you wanted to take 405, but you also want to take 481 or IME 312, because IME 312 is important for your class project that's coming up in the next few quarters, or it's something you want to work on your senior project, but it takes more time to finish that class and do well in that class than the units would indicate. And you want to start your senior project early because you don't want to leave it to the very end. But you also know that it takes a lot more time than you might otherwise think. But you also want to do well in 405 because, like we said earlier, that's the prereq for 2 of the courses in the next quarter. So you want to tell PASS, all right, look, PASS, I just want to take one of these 3 courses, and then I want to take these 3 other courses. Well, PASS won't say, okay, let me make a schedule for each one of those for you and see you can compare. What PASS says and does instead is just give it to me and I'll do it, one at a time. So what you would do as a user is you would say, I want 405 and these 3 classes. And then you would say, well, now I want IME 312 in these 3 classes, and then now I want IME 481 in these 3 classes. And you would compare kind of what they look like. So that's a bit more work than I think a student would really want to put in, but it's definitely something that we can add to PASS to make it better. So how am I going to go about doing that? So it's going to basically work off an Access database. And the Access database will have 2 forms. The second form will be for the faculty, and it'll be for them to edit the database between quarters, and then they can mail out this master database via email to the students to use for their scheduling. The first form, however, which is more important, is for the students, and the first form would go something like this. The student would say, I'm taking class A, B, C, D, E, F, and I have a preference of X, Y, Z, W for those classes. And PASS would say, the Access database, the companion program would say, okay, no problem, let me get that for you. So it would take that into account, it would make a table, throw the table to Excel. Excel would then use its solver function to read the table, throw the answer back to the user, and the answer would be something like, if you want to have your optimal preference, you need to take class, X, Z, and W. And then you need to take these sections from that class. So that's kind of where I want to go with that, but I really want to make sure that I limit myself my scope, because I found from my lit review that a lot of similar projects have problems with the scope getting out of hand. So it would limit the scope by 1, it would only be to senior level courses in the most recent flowchart. That way when I test the program, I have a lot of test subjects to work with and get a lot of feedback from them. The second part is that I only want to work with the limitations I've listed in this PowerPoint. So I want to work with the ability to add a preference for a single class, so you can do combinations and things like that for your best options. I want to do preference for groups, so I want you to be able to say, you know, I only take one of these three and that kind of thing. And I want them to be able to put more classes than they're going to take. All right, so here's kind of what I want this project to become by the end of its life cycle, so to speak, when it's completed. I really want to focus on delivering an actual product to give to the students at the end of the quarter. So when I'm done, I want this to be something that's ready to go, the faculty can implement it and give it out to the students, and they can start using it as their senior level courses. Because when you're in your senior year, it becomes a lot more difficult to find the classes you need, because some classes you just have to take those quarters because they aren't available in other quarters and you want to graduate on time. And I also want it to be something that can kind of develop on its own after I leave. So I've been here for 5 years as a student, and I've used the pass system every quarter like I should, but I want this to be something I give back to the school. I want this to be something that the school can use to help their students, and I want it to be something that students can improve to help themselves. Other senior projects could continue on this. They could build other databases for, say, the junior year or the freshman, for instance, and even though it's a similar type of problem, finding the solution to that problem would still take a lot of work and effort, because as you add more optimizations like classes in the morning and classes at night, least time between classes, the kind of thing PASS offers right now, but it would be, again, on a grander scale, you start to face greater and greater complications. Okay, well, that was a quick look at my senior project. I hope you liked it, and I hope you approve me.